Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Safety Brief. Today, Mike and I are tackling some cyber turbulence as we unpack the rise of airline attacks, who's behind them, why they're happening, and how this all impacts not just passengers, but the entire global supply chain. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And absolutely loving the outfit. Super patriotic, I see.
Hey, you know what? Some people got to go to work tomorrow and some people don't, so it's all good. Pays to be a winner. Pays
It
to be a
sure
winner.
does.
It's
Well,
funny.
to kick us off, Mike, can you break down some of the recent airline cyber incidents for us? Who's been hit, and how did these attacks actually play out?
Yeah, thematically, we have had an increase in the amount of kinetic impact on the everyday person's life due to cyber outages and cyber attacks. And I want to be really clear here, just as a preface, that there are a lot of different articles that are being published about what happened with American Airlines last week, and
Hmm.
most are leaning towards the quote unquote computer glitch type explanation. Uh, and yes,
Sure.
glitches happen, right? So I just want to preface this that we can only report on the news that is reported. We're trying not to speculate too much, but it could have been a cyber attack, right? And this could be an attempt to save face. But regardless, I mean, if we go back to the Colonial Pipeline hack, where if for those that don't remember, like the Eastern Seaboard was gas stations were closed down, like people could not pump fuel due to that was a cyber attack confirmed, and there's multiple resources to back that up. And so, um, we had the largest password breach in history 3 weeks ago. And so needless to say, users are a little frustrated, and I can understand why. There is no worse place to be stranded than in an airport. It's one thing that if you're traveling through during the day and kiosks and stores are open and they're there to feed you, it's one thing. But overnight at an airport is I've been there. I've been there this year, and it's not great. It's not great. And so people have a right. They're founded in their frustration. Is my point. And so, but ultimately, what we saw last week was just before, I want to say like 4 o'clock Eastern. I believe it was Thursday or Friday. Apparently, a technology outage took out almost all of American Airlines' flight gate systems. Now, to be clear, as far as we know, this was more so on the gate and boarding side of the systems. I don't believe, nor have I seen it reported yet. Could be changing that any like air traffic, aerospace technology, right? Like communications of planes were working, planes in the air were able to land, right? Like as far as that's concerned. But there
That can
was
get
a
real
huge,
dangerous.
yeah, that's right. I just want to be really clear here. That really big. It was a halt to all about to be outbound and taking off airplanes, and so you got people a week before 4th of July. It's summer. People are traveling. Families are traveling. Kids are off school, right? And you're dragging 2 or 3 kids through the airport. It's a lot to just drag your own self through the airport. Okay,
Yeah.
so it was a frustrating afternoon. And again, the difficulty, like any air travel, is it's always cascading. It waterfalls, right? So if you get a day of really bad air travel or really bad weather, guess what? There were still a thick stack of flights scheduled to go out that next day, and that still need to go out. And so trying to compensate for double the traffic in the same day out of these same airports, it's a lot. It's a lot. So a little bit of train wreck, but really no reports yet as far as very specific. This was a cyber attack. This and where can we add resilience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to airline attacks, we can also see attacks on airline booking systems, crew scheduling platforms, and even airport operations. A lot of these can be ransomware or data theft operations. In some cases, we're talking about flights being grounded, cargo being delayed, and massive data breaches.
Correct.
And it's not just a PR nightmare, it's passengers stranded, reputations damaged, and the ripple effects that reach across industries, as Mike pointed out. So we also keep hearing about this group, Scattered Spider. Mike, who exactly are they and what makes them so dangerous or popular as of lately?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, taking one step back, as far as these group names, some of our listeners may have heard of terms such as APTs, or APT or Typhoon, or all of these crazy names that it's one thing for hurricanes to come off the coast of Africa, South Florida, but these threat groups, often if they're found to be an established organized group, they will give themselves a name. Now, what name and how are they named? There's a couple of different naming conventions set by them. Microsoft has their own naming convention. CrowdStrike has their other naming convention. There's a lot of different naming conventions out there. But essentially, what you have is typically like an adjective noun, or sometimes a noun combined with a noun. So, really, where they're going to come out of is first with region or location that this group is geographically, at least potentially operating from. But then there's also um, the other, the secondary word in this case, spider, really the tactics or the techniques that are used by these threat groups, right? So
Mhm.
again, how those names are contrived or kind of combined into is really reminiscent of where are they operating out of, what level of organization do they have, as well as what are their tactics and techniques.
Yeah. I've also read that they've stated, no proof here, but they have stated that they've hit everything from casinos to airlines, um, with a mix of fishing, vishing, and living off of the land tactics. And
Right.
that's what kind of makes them hard to detect until it's too late. And I would like to also point out that this is just one group grabbing headlines, right? There are
Right.
plenty of other groups, as Mike stated, that are out there operating the same way, just without as much spotlight.
No,
Now,
exactly. And, as far as, again, most reports are pointing towards a glitch. We know that this is most likely the victim of an attack. And I mean, even the FBI has come out and said, as far as a source is concerned, I believe it was June 28th, 29th, that they basically came out and said, hey, we have observed activity from this group, again, this APT, this threat group, exhibiting activity against the airline industry as a whole. Okay. And so
mhm.
we don't know if that's US centric, if that's European centric, whatever. But again, the tactics and techniques of these threat groups are often kind of what they're targeting. Are they targeting medical? Are they targeting infrastructure? Are they targeting natural resources in some instances, or city and government, right? And so again, but yes, this specific threat group has been highlighted, kind of put on blast by the FBI, reputable source on cyber terrorism, that they are specifically looking at either targeting airlines by impersonation. Because again, in the airline industry, there's contractors, there's 1099s, there's tons of vendors in that space, right? The people that refill the snacks are probably different than the people that refuel the planes. And so again, there's a lot of moving parts here, but often what we've seen, reminiscent of a lot of attacks, is a supply chain type attack, meaning in the natural supply chain of an industry, of an enterprise, there are natural things like vendors, like supplies that come in. That's what we're potentially seeing as far as activities. So impersonation, obviously upfront and important. Social engineering is going to be another tactic to look out for as far as tactics and techniques. But needless to say, a lot of news last week.
Yeah. Yeah, and before I flip back to you, I'd like to also touch on why I think airlines and transportation are such prime targets right now. It really boils down to a few things, actually. Airlines hold massive amounts of personal and financial data, which is perfect for identity theft. Think of how many times you have to enter not only your information for your ticket, but also your children. Anyone who's flying, their full information has to be in their system, along with, borders and passports and things along that nature. So there's a lot of personal information. And then there's also operational disruption. One day could literally cost millions, as Mike
Right.
stated. There's so many, flights scheduled for the next day. So how do you get the people who missed or could have, failed to get on their flight the day before? Like there's so much loss in revenue on just one day.
Right.
So cyber criminals know companies are more likely to pay ransom quickly when it comes to disruptions at that cost. And a lot of these systems still tie back to older tech stacks, making them more vulnerable.
Right.
Because when was the last time did they shut down the airport to update everything?
Right.
It's a little harder.
Right.
Mike, what are your thoughts? Any other reasons you think airlines and or transportation are such big targets right now when it comes to cyber attacks?
Yeah, there's so many theories. I mean, geopolitically, there's a lot going on, needless to say, right? We got Russia, Ukraine, we got Israel, Iran, we got our own things of noteworthy attention stateside that are being dealt with and passionately discussed. And so, again, this there could be, as far as like a motive, a means and a motive. I would say, as far as motive is concerned, there could be a test of a larger scale attack, meaning, hey, are we able to accomplish this kinetic end goal with whatever tactic or technique we're using, right? So it could be a dry run, it could be a dress rehearsal, it could be foreshadowing to something bigger. But again, I mean, if the FBI is tracking it and acknowledging it publicly, it is almost as if, hey, we've seen this already happen behind the scenes. We've quelled it to a certain degree. Be ready for potential kinetic effects by this threat actor, right? Like FBI just doesn't
Exactly.
come out every day and say, hey, it could rain tomorrow, so bring your coat. You know what I mean? Whenever they
Yeah.
come out with public advisories like this, you just
You pay
think,
attention.
yeah, just because by the nature of the FBI, they have to be seeing some kinetic actions on target in order to. Somebody's got to draft that PSA. Somebody's got to brief that intel. There's a lot of things going on in the background before that hits public sector, and so just knowing how the bureau operates, this is something that is noteworthy. And again, when is it most painful to attack an airport? High traffic times, right? Like
Holidays.
holidays. Again, a lot of travel. And again, there's a lot going on, geopolitically around the world and economically. And so, again, as far as motive, no one surely knows except those doing it for sure. But I would say, disruption, uh, public intimidation, of, like almost a doubting the security or the level of security around these systems. Obviously, frustration, getting a mob of angry pitchfork people in an airport to yell at a U.S. based company, right? Like, that's one way to affect. You could affect stock markets. You could affect a lot of things, right,
Yeah.
with an outage like this. And so, again, motive theories abundant as far as that's concerned. But disruption was obviously the motive. We didn't see, basically, based on what I saw, there was no encryption event. It didn't seem to be monetarily motivated or financially motivated, but definitely almost sit back, watch the world burn a little bit, and see a lot of people trying to travel, not able to.
Yeah. Speaking of the watch the world burn, I think it's important that we talk about the ripple effects of attacks like this. For passengers, it's obviously delayed or canceled flights, lost luggage, stolen personal data. For business partners, there's cargo delays,
Right.
meaning contract penalties, production
Right.
slowdowns, and even empty retail shelves. It
Right.
turns into this domino effect across the entire supply chain. So, Mike, what stands out most to you about the downstream impact of these attacks?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think just the chaos generated by an event, uh, as in the disruption itself, is often paled in comparison to the chaos induced by users impacted. What do I mean?
Yeah,
Right. So it is one thing for planes not able to come up to a gate and get the door unlocked, or how many passengers we have on board, who's authenticating boarding passes, all of this. That in and of itself is a disruption. Then you have to think about okay, now you got hundreds of thousands, maybe stranded passengers going to the airline support kiosks and desks, almost as in a secondary consequence DDoS attack of crippling infrastructure. So not only are they not able to get planes off the ground, they're now having their call centers flooded. They're now losing revenue. They're losing revenue because people can't get on planes, and they're losing revenue because of the amount of time it's taking to, because the amount of time it's taking to simply get things back up and running, right? So again, it's like if you think about a business or a manufacturing line, they have a certain quota that they need to get off the line every day. That's one part. They account for that cost. They account for the employees they have to pay. Now you got double the amount of flights now going out the next day. Now you need to fly pilots even longer, closer to their timeout window. You got fatigued pilots, you got fatigued crew, right? There's safety concerns with getting twice the amount of planes out of the same airport in a day because again, that's the stuff you don't want to short, right? You don't want to use any shortcuts as far as safety checks. And so, again, you can't sacrifice any time. So I really do think that this was again, it was a two-pronged attack, one of which being the mere operational overhead of needing to get planes out of airports that weren't able to. And then the logistical overhead of logistically rebooking people, dealing with customer complaints, issuing refunds where applicable, covering hotels if they were stranded, right? Like there's bleeding money and manpower hours on that side. So again, two-pronged attack. A lot of people are going to look at it and be like, planes are going to get off the ground. Yes, most definitely. But the cleanup of such an event is weighty. It is not an easy thing to tidy up after.
Yeah, and that's just one section of
Right,
that. When planes are on the ground, it's not just about transportation, there's cargo. There's
right,
there's other items on planes.
right,
Um, not to go deep into that as well, but it's that's just a small portion of what could be affected when we're talking about taking down um, airlines or
right,
transportation. So I think it's also important to remember it shakes consumer trust as well.
right.
People start to wonder if it's even safe to book with that airline again.
Exactly.
And in an industry built on service and reputation, that's a massive problem. So
Right,
it could also have been targeted towards that specific airline as well.
exactly.
We have no idea. So, anyways, let's switch gears here a little
Yeah.
bit. What can airlines or any critical infrastructure organization do to defend against these threats proactively? To provide a little bit of support here rather than
Yeah.
just doom and gloom.
No, 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 totally. And again, it's just I acknowledge the frustration out of travelers. It's not cheap to fly. Me and my family have flown already this summer, and it's expensive. It's right. It's expensive. It's obviously you know it's an obvious claim, but it is expensive. So all you can hope for is that you've done every part of your budgeting and family planning and packing. That you just need that plane to get off the ground on time. And when that doesn't happen, it's like, yeah, heavens me, stuck in the airport with kids. I love them, but not a good place to have kids. Um, so ultimately, how do we bolster it? I think ultimately, when it comes to resilience, you just have to know where you're weak. And I think Elizabeth, you pointed out a great point that what is the approved maintenance window of an airport, and a lot of international airports operate 24/7. They got planes coming in and out every hour of every day, and so the difficulty really is, making the time, making the scheduled downtime for that. Again, it's intentional downtime because it's why, because we can update our systems, because we can make things more resilient. So a lot of people are afraid of the downtime chance by implementing these controls, but it's ironic that, hey, it's downtime you can control is better than downtime you can't, and it's often much quicker and much more easy to schedule around as far as maintenance like that. So I would say, really, if you don't have weekly, if not bi-weekly or monthly scheduled downtime for servers to get patched, for applications to be updated, it's just risk you're inheriting, right? I think I worked a ticket with one of our SOC engineers just this week, where there was some accounting software getting blocked, and the software was okay, but the software loading the installation package was third party, and that certificate hadn't been updated in like years. And so, yes, the software is good, but even the undercarriage or the inner workings of that it wasn't properly updated and kept up to date. So again, you're gonna have cutting edge software that shuts down stuff like that. That's antiquated. That's not up to date, and that's intentional. That's intentional. The reason it's getting shut down is because it's exposing risk, unnecessary risk at that. And so, really, as far as IT teams, whether it's airline companies getting everything back up and running, or the civilians that are frustrated with this, but looking at it like, hey, I need to make sure this doesn't happen to me, really just take note of what measurable or controlled downtime we can block off. Hey, every month, third Thursday of the month, we update our accounting system. Every second Tuesday of the month, we update workstations and servers, right? Whatever that cadence is, just make a schedule. Make a schedule, make a maintenance schedule and a calendar that the company knows, hey, we're open 24/7, but these 2 hours every third Tuesday or whatever it is, right? Again, every company's going to decide what this is, but
Yeah.
again, better is the downtime you can schedule and plan around than the downtime you can't. And I think that's really the overarching theme here is that, hey, you can bolster your security posture by scheduling downtime, getting updates, getting patches deployed, doing the due diligence, doing the good work, but you have to be willing to just bend the knee to that little bit of downtime because of, again, what does it take? Well, I got to reboot servers. I got to do this. And yes, it's more effort, but again, it's proactive. It's proactive. So just like going to the gym, you're sore, you don't feel good, right? You get in there and it hurts sometimes. Again, the after effect, you could still be sore, right? You still don't feel great. But again, it's almost, I've been a couple of wise guys that I know in my life that are doing jujitsu and other things. It's like I'm either going to be in pain when I'm old because I didn't work out, or I'm going to be in pain when I'm old because I did work out. So like the pain's inevitable, right? The inevitable nature of downtime is it's going to come. Much better the downtime you can control and measure and expect and plan around and recover from than that you cannot foresee. And so, yeah, I would say that's really the overarching theme here is stay ready so you don't got to get ready. And
Yeah,
that's
I
all
like that.
airlines and summer businesses, especially getting back to school. I mean, schools better take this of note. School's starting in, I'm pretty sure it's 30 days or so. So that's the theme. Stay ready so you don't got to get ready.
Yeah, stay frosty, right? We say it
That's
all the
right.
time.
That's right.
I think it also starts with the basics as well. Tight identity and access management, zero trust principles, securing remote access points. It also means adopting prevention or proactive security or first tools. Don't just rely on detecting threats after they've detonated. As our social post said earlier this week, detection is not security, it is an alert. There's no security built into detection. So, real time endpoint prevention, strong email filtering, and continuous vulnerability scanning are all crucial. And having a tested incident response plan so you're not improvising in the heat of the moment is huge. You
Agreed.
don't want your first ransomware or event to be during an active event.
Right. Right.
Alrighty, so we've got time for one last question. Mike, if you were advising a Cisco at an airline right now, what would your top three security priorities be and why?
Yeah, no, great question. So, three practical priorities. I would say number one, make sure, and again, this goes back to the APT threat actor that was flagged by the FBI. Uh, their tactic was impersonation or supply chain attacks via personnel, you know? And so I would examine very closely not just the email filtering itself, but look at the SaaS application suite as a whole. Where could people, threat actors, implant files? Where could they put faux receipts or faux invoices, right? Again, everybody's going to think about email traffic coming in. But if an Office 365 account or a Google Workspace account is compromised, there's a lot of apps behind that app, that authentication, that username and password. And so examine the SaaS suite as a whole, not just email. Don't get so tunnel visioned on email that you don't look at OneDrive or SharePoint or Google Drive as examples. Because again, there could be some malicious payload stage there that, again, yes, they're going to scan to their level and capacity, but examine that. Another thing you want to make sure you look at is behavioral analytics at the email level, meaning not just does this email contain a bad attachment, or not just does this email come from a bad address, but grammatically and like within the context of the message, does it make sense? And there's some really neat AI that we've been able to develop and deploy, specifically looking at the tense and the nature, not just are there misspellings or is there a missing comma, right? That's not what I'm saying. But there is really, really unique, hey, geographically where this email is coming from and who it's sent to, does it make sense, right? Like it's a logic, it's an AI examination of the contents of the email as a whole. Hey, it says attaches your boarding pass, here's a link, but there's no attachment, right? Things like this. Again, it's things that users won't notice just by glancing through their email. But I would say definitely look at that. And, I would say, addition to those priorities, really look at when was your last risk assessment as a whole? When did you inventory the level of risk, whether it's workstation based or server based or whatever it may be? But not just when the last assessment was, but what was the last action taken on that assessment? Meaning, hey, we got this assessment done last October and we've had one guy kind of dedicated, one gal kind of dedicated from an engineering standpoint to resolve it. When was the last action taken on the risk you already know and have spent and invested good money and capital into knowing? When was the last action taken? Because most often, industry or enterprises that have done the due diligence of a vulnerability assessment know everything that they need to know. They just have to now go and execute. And so the execute is that final last mile of that piece that we see just often cheated. And who knows when American Airlines' last risk assessment was, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the point is, I bet at some point there was a risk assessment that pointed out, just like the FBI, and that's what the FBI is doing. The FBI put out an advisory. Hey, airlines, get your stuff together. You're
Yeah.
being targeted as an advisory, right? Like you are for-profit businesses, right? We all think you like making money. We as the Bureau are going to just give you a underhand softball and say, hey, we're seeing multiple airlines targeted. So if you like your profit, if you like your clients, especially, right, you're going to spend all that money and then your plane's going to be canceled, probably not flying American anytime soon. It's just the
Yeah.
reality of the consumer consequence. And so, again, I would say, again, impersonation attacks via email, make sure you have really intelligent AI scanning those things with preemptive based security, just like you said, not response driven or reactive based security. It's not enough to know that 1,000 emails were sent from an account that's been compromised. We need to know that that login attempt was prevented preemptively because of certain behavioral analytics exhibited beforehand, right? And so, and again, more often than not, if you're a CISO listening to this or you're an IT advisor, if we asked you one thing that keeps you up at night about your just cyber risk, you're gonna know what that thing is. You're gonna
Yeah.
know what that thing is, right? Like you already know it. It's like, yeah, I know it. That's my weak spot. That's the chink in the armor. Do something about it. Do something within the power of your control, within the budget constraints, within everything we know that are left and right lateral limits. Do something about it. Do anything about it. Just tell somebody about it this week, right? Like just sound the alarm, but don't sit idle on it. If you know there is risk that could be mitigated.
Exactly. Yeah, that was wonderful. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Safety Brief. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you'd like to know more about preemptive cybersecurity, feel free to reach out to us at hello@blockworks.com or head over to our website to explore more. We hope that you have a wonderful Independence Day and stay safe out there. Thank you
Thanks
so
all.
much.
Happy 4th.